Today's episode is brought to you by Sideshow, the Overwatch League player.
It's high noon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I am your host of the Blevins. With me, as always, is Deathblow. What's up, buddy?
Not too much, my man. How are you doing?
Oh, hanging in. We had
You might actually be in the middle of an active protest right now, for all we know.
Yeah, there were definitely some protests and I don't know if I'd say full-blown riots, but definitely some riot-like activities about a block away from my house, actually, roughly.
Yeah, pretty crazy everywhere. Sure, nobody's a massive stranger to that, at least. But
yeah, at least not folks in the U.S. at this point, but the show must go on. So yeah, I mean, that's that with that craziness out of the way, we have other Overwatch League related craziness to talk about today, and let's just jump right into it. But before we do, of course, we do have some housekeeping. Black Watch Report is back on track here, talking about some contenders playoffs, keeping all that Tier 2 Overwatch up to date. And honestly, Tier 2 Overwatch has been popping off a little bit, Death. I don't know if you've seen some of the Twitter memes and whatnot going around.
oh man, their marketing has been absolutely brilliant. It's been so much fun, like the whole leg day,
Yeah.
and those guys are just doing, and yeah, leg day has been doing a great job at that. I almost leg day and Jaws, but we have Jaws now, right?
Yeah.
So but in my head, they're still a duo. It's still together.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he's been doing a great job, just helping promote that. You know, getting a lot of the community members to do memes and tweets about it, and just get people excited. They had the really fun Lunatic High versus Runaway show match they did with an Owl Futures match associated with that as well. Just a lot of really fun, cool stuff going on in Tier 2. And it's been a long time since we've been able to say that. So if you want to get caught up and find out everything that's going on, Black Watch Report, definitely the place for you guys.
Yeah, definitely there. And they did just cross, I think this newest episode is episode 101. They just crossed their 100 episode mark. So make sure you guys go and congratulate them on that. You know, Death as the boomers of the podcast world now, at least the Overwatch podcast world, we know just how crazy a feat it is to hit 100 as we hit our second 100. So yes, and of course, as always, huge shout outs to our executive producer, Bungee Bamboo, who has supported us on Patreon. Again, you guys can go and do the same over at patreon.com/High Noon Podcast. It really does help us out as we continue the show and the coverage of the Overwatch League. And hopefully someday, I'm sure someday we'll be back at a grand finals at a packed out esports or traditional sports venue, but of course that's not something we're thinking about right now, but someday in the future we hope to be. Okay, let's move on and talk about what we did this week. Death, anything fun and exciting for you? I know you've been on the Sea of Thieves grind again.
If you ain't kidding. Yeah, I've been having a ton of fun with that game. I've been trying to really get things started and kicked off for I mean, I might as well just say it. I'm really planning on attacking content for Diablo 4 when it comes out. So I'm trying to get kind of well positioned where my stream is set up, and I've got a little bit going on there. And yeah, and I've got a YouTube home for it and everything like that with a little bit of a head start. And right now I'm really into Sea of Thieves. So that's what I've been focusing on when streaming. And I got one YouTube video out that's like a hour and a half long video of like stream highlights essentially. And that's all. There's links to all that stuff in the off topic in our Discord. So discord.me/high noon podcast. If you're at all interested there, please join that. Check it out. Rebranded the Twitch page a little bit, Deathblow TTV, instead of hieroglyphics and underscores and things like that make Blevins make fun of me. It's really the only reason I did it, and it's all Blevins' fault. So if you don't like it, please at the _Blevins because he's allowed to have them, but I'm not allowed to have them.
I hate the underscore. I just don't have a better. The underscore is better than a number. That's for sure. But the lack of an underscore is better than an underscore. So
it's so frustrating that my name is taken everywhere and used nowhere.
Yeah.
Then nowhere is there an active at Deathblow.
Right.
But it's taken and I can't have it. And that's
same.
everywhere. That's Twitch, that's Twitter, that's like literally the entire world. And so it's just very, very frustrating. Doing what I can, but now I have a YouTube channel branded with TTV on it, which is dumb. And I hate it. So nonetheless, we're working on it, figuring it out. But I had a whole like logo made. I'm working on getting that animated for the beginning of the YouTube
that logo,
videos.
By the way.
Thank you. I do too. I was really, really happy with how it came out. Yeah, just picked somebody up on Fiverr and got one of those created. So yeah, really happy with the way that turned out. You can see that on my Twitter everywhere, which the Twitter I think is even at Deathblow TTV now.
Ooh.
So yeah, check me out there. Again, links in the off topic channel in the Discord. Check it out. Please do go follow and subscribe to the YouTube channel so I can get that custom URL going before the D4 content hits. That's my big goal.
Custom D4 content. Yes, that'll be a big one. D4 is gonna be sweet. Even I actually played Diablo 4 a little bit at BlizzCon last year. So that was fun, and it definitely feels different than D3 in a lot of ways. But I'm sure, Death, you're going to have way more to say about that once we get closer, so we'll save that for your content. But for me, I've just been on the grind, doing the LOR thing, casting a ton still doing that, so that's been fun, and streaming a little bit. So it's been fun. Been having a lot of fun doing that. But enough about me. No one really wrong button. Man, I'm out of it today. No one really cares about that. Let's move on and get into a little bit of news. So I know there's a couple of things to talk about in regards to the news, but the biggest thing that I wanted to talk about, Death, is the fact, and it was mentioned at the top of the show, Sideshow was signed to a 2-week contract with the Florida Mayhem. And we alluded to this. I mentioned this type of thing a couple of weeks ago on the show where I feel like this might just be an urban legend, but it was like, turn of the century baseball teams would hire like a 3-foot man to go in for one at bat. So it would be like impossible not to walk them just to get a walk and then take them out, sign them for like a 1-day contract, or, they signed they signed a horse to a 2-week contract to steal base, stupid stuff like that. And almost instantly we got something similarly dumb.
Are you saying Sideshow is a 3-foot tall horse? Because that's what I heard.
That's exactly what I'm saying, is that Sideshow is a 3-foot tall horse. And if that's not an episode title, I don't know what is.
I mean, if Sideshow wants to come on the show and refute that claim, he's welcome to, obviously. But otherwise, I think it stands. That's just a fact now.
Yeah, it's just canon.
I'll edit his Wikipedia page. We'll get it in there.
We'll get it in there. But
it'll be Overwatch League's Lil Sebastian. There'll be songs about him. It'll be phenomenal.
That would be phenomenal. But basically, I would say all jokes aside, but I only mean some jokes aside. Some jokes aside, Florida Mayhem did a really cool, sort of show matchy type of thing where there was a challenge between Yaki. Was it? I'm pretty sure it was Yaki and Sideshow. And it was, if Sideshow could do something, he gets a 2-week contract. And
so the actual terms were, it was a fair 1v1, and they had a custom game set up where they were constantly getting the healing equivalent of a Pharah, or not a Pharah, Mercy on them, and they were just flying around as Pharah trying to frag out.
Yeah.
And it was the winner was declared when either Sideshow hit 5 kills on Yaki or Yaki hit 20 on Sideshow.
Okay.
And if Yaki won, then Sideshow was going to have to refer to him as Lord Yaki.
Okay, classic Lord bet.
Yep, Lord bet. We dabbled in those ourselves. It was not an original concept. I know somebody said it reminded them of it on Twitter, and we appreciate you for remembering us. But yes, it was not something we made up by any means. So yeah, that was all good. And then if there was 5 kills for Sideshow, then he got a 2-week contract to the team.
Yeah, which I mean, again, like it's just a it's so fun.
Chips has a contract. It's for a whole year. Why not?
Yeah, it's fun. Do fun things. Please, someone sign me as a popcorn vendor. I will do it. It's just a hilarious. It's a great way. Like, you know, we've seen some teams and you know, the LA Valiant, for instance, they do a really good job and they do some hilarious things with their social media and they sort of embrace the meme. That's great. Philly also known for really embracing the meme. Some teams do it more straightforward, which is fine. Not every team. It's not funny if every single team is like a meme all the time, right? Like it's less funny if it's more if everyone is doing it. But some teams do it, and this was a really fun and interesting way to, you know, spice things up in this, you know, maybe a little interesting time with the you know, lack of homestands and all the stuff that we've been dealing with for the last however many months. I've lost track of time, but it was just a fun way to, you know, utilize the 2-week contracts to do something fun. I mean,
it was very goofy. It was what it was. It was exactly what we described, which is a little bit ridiculous, a whole lot of fun. And while it was going on, I think everybody had a really, really good time with it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Cut to the end.
Yeah, cut to the end. And I mean,
now prefacing this whole conversation with a giant "who cares?"
Right. That's true.
We'll put that at the beginning of it.
Yes.
But that said, I don't like the way it ended.
Yeah.
Personally. So essentially, there was the announcement on the Florida Mayhem Twitter page where they showed signing him. They linked to where you can buy his jerseys on the Overwatch League page.
Fun.
All great. Also, cool gimmick for sales, right?
Yeah.
Somebody wants to remember the event. You get to sell a couple jerseys. You know, why not?
I'm just putting it out there. If I got signed to a 2-week contract, I'm selling at least 2 jerseys. I guarantee it.
Your mom and your dad?
No, me twice. Kidding me? I'm getting a home and away jersey. Duh.
Your parents would never spend money on that crap.
Are you kidding me?
But now, Blevins, and this was what, not 2 weeks ago, to say the least. I'm looking around on the website here. I don't see any Sideshow jerseys, but he's on the team, right? I saw the announcement. There was a link before.
Nope.
No,
he got cut.
Okay, so let's go to the Overwatch League website. Let's look at the rosters, right? Because it's got to be there, right? Like they lost the bet.
Yeah.
So you have to man up.
Follow through with the bit.
You know he's not here. So what's going on? This doesn't make sense. When you want to know what's going on with a team, you go straight to the owner's Twitter account, right? That's where it's where the answers are going to be.
Of course.
It's where we're going to find out. Let me see here. It is with May 29th. It is with a heavy heart and deep sadness I announced the departure of @Sideshow Gaming from the Florida Mayhem. He's been cut.
Wow.
You lost, Ben. What did you make the bet for if you're gonna take it away and have no fun with it whatsoever?
That's not 2 weeks.
Why weren't you up 3-0 in a game playing Sideshow on stage in the, not on stage because where everybody's from home, but like, why aren't you subbing him in for a game, one match? Like there was so much more fun to be had with this. Like your guy lost, right? You're already kind of the butt of this joke, but who cares, right? Because one of the kills Yaki just laid down, and he like goes, okay, I'm at 19 and you're only at 3. So we let him kill him once,
right?
And then Sideshow popped off and got the last kill. So it's already a goofy thing. And listen, if you're in serious matches and you don't ever actually use him, then it's no big deal. But I hope this is a curse that follows the Florida Mayhem, drags them back down into the dumpster for all time. It was like a kind of a slap in the face to everybody that got themselves pumped up and invested for it. He should be on the team. He should be on the website listed on the team. He should still have jerseys up for sale until his 2 weeks are up. You should have done everything in your power to use him and play him in the match, if at all possible, without actively throwing an entire match away.
Right.
Because your fans don't necessarily deserve that either, right? But they're looking really good right now.
Right.
It's very reasonable. They catch a match against even a mid-table team like Houston or Dallas, and they've got a big lead, and so they get you take Yaki out and you put Sideshow in. It's the most ridiculous. I'm well aware of how absurd that sentence was, but it's part of it. And if you weren't willing to buy into it and play with it and have at least that much fun with it, where you're looking for opportunities to put him in for a single map, like how great would it have been? He's even casting the match, right? And he's got to like, and then Brenn's got to solo cast it, or they've got to like call Uber or Mr. X up to be the
have
duo
him cast
because
while playing.
They're subbing, or do that. I really don't care. I mean, you can't do that because Sideshow would want to take it seriously. So I'd say allow that much. Either let Bren solo it, or like it would have just been
hilarious,
more fun. Like it would have been great. Like the Florida Mayhem could have given us something really special and really fun
to talk about forever.
Allowed it to fall flat on its face, and they killed it before it even had a chance to live, basically. And I don't know, it bothered me a little bit. Listen, we're in a world right now where we're talking about how close the riots were to Blevins' apartment, and we're talking about all these things happening when we should be ideally observing social distancing and staying 6 feet apart from each other. And there's real problems in the world, and we sincerely hope you come here for a break from
this
them,
is not one of those problems,
so that we can deep dive into the ridiculous absurdity that is the Florida Mayhem Sideshow 2-week contract. Okay, that's that's kind of fun, is what we're here for. It's our escape, our outlet from those other problems. We hope to give that to you. So again, that's why I prefaced it with a giant who cares. But either way, damn it, I'm pissed. And I think this could have been way better, way more cool, way more fun. And I just would like to take a minute to shame Bell, the Florida Mayhem, for cutting this man who did nothing but earn his spot on the roster. That you offered him, you gave him this bet.
There's a shame bell for Florida there. Two last things.
Boo.
Yeah. Two. I'm hearing sirens. Like in real life.
They're coming for you, Ben.
They're coming for you from Buffalo. Only you better hide. They're only 27 hours away. This reminds me of this makes me think of two things. The first is an observation. A few weeks ago, so I follow the NBA subreddit just because I like to be passively follow what's going on in the NBA. Obviously, nothing is going on right now, so it's all old highlights and stuff, and literally just talking about the Michael Jordan documentary. But a couple of weeks ago, I had the realization that the NBA had hit rock bottom in terms of like things to talk about, where the number one upvoted topic or thread at the time was, how would Hagrid from Harry Potter do if he were in the NBA? And they did all this stuff about how,
on the court.
Like, well,
just put me on the court.
No, because based on like the books, he's something like 10 feet tall or something like that, and would be like probably 600 or 700 pounds. Based on it, like they did all these,
I think would be an actual giant, but I don't remember. He would be considerably bigger than me, but it's still within the range of like humanity. I think
all I'm going off of it was in the thread they pulled quotes from the book that described how big he is, and then did way too much like searching Wikipedia, because it like describes, I don't remember what it is, but in the book it like describes him like how tall he is based on something else. So
8 feet 6 inches tall.
Okay, so 8 feet 6, and then like his size, not just his height, his size put him at something like, I don't know, 500 pounds or something like that, like something massive. So they were discussing, like, it was a gigantic thread on Reddit about how would Hagrid do if he were in the NBA today. And I'm like, okay, we definitely have hit peak, or we've hit rock bottom in the NBA subreddit. And this conversation about Sideshow makes me think we maybe have hit rock bottom. And
I thought, to be honest, this whole thing went a different direction, because I thought you were going to talk about the Shaq versus Gorilla conversation.
Wait, there's a Shaq versus Gorilla conversation?
Oh, there's a whole thing, and Brendan Sideshow brought it up on the cast. It was like, I want to say, like, in the waning minutes of the finals for the Asia region, they're like talking about how it would, like, 4 Shaquille O'Neals would lose to 1 gorilla in their mind, and like it was
in basketball or in a fight.
In a fight. I'm pretty sure. I don't know.
This silverback gorilla, because I'm pretty sure that's true. Those things are. Do you have a particular thought on who would win in that fight?
Man, I've never seen Shaq angry, and that to me is what it needs. But I would tend to think any gorilla can beat any human being.
A chimpanzee, which is considerably smaller than a gorilla, can literally tear any human's face or limbs off with relative ease.
Bring it, chimp. I ain't scared. A gorilla, maybe, but I'm not scared. I'm not scared.
A chimpanzee would tear you to shreds. I guarantee you.
A chimpanzee would be out like a light before it got anywhere near me. But
all right, so Death Blow versus Chimpanzee 2021 pay-per-view.
Go to the zoo. It's closed.
That's what I said. 2021 pay-per-view. The fight of a lifetime. The Yeti versus the chimp. Who is gonna win? The winner gets all the Squatchberry.
Oh man, he's calling out my vape flavor. I like it.
Yeah.
I don't know what the chimp would do with it if it took me out, but it's nonetheless.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. But anyways, I thought that's where that was going, because it was like an RNBA meme or something like that.
Okay.
that bled into Overwatch. Yeah. Anyways.
So the second thing I wanted to say, and to kind of put a cap to put a
our very serious conversation,
to put a bow in it. I just have one thing. Philly, sign Gritty 2-week contract and play him. And you won't do it. I want to see Gritty full suit playing in the Overwatch League. I want to see it. It will forever be it'll be the inverse of the curse. The Sideshow curse is now on the Florida Mayhem. The Gritty blessing will be on the Philadelphia Fusion. Will guarantee it's an
11-man roster. I thought it was 12. I was gonna say I don't want to shut down the dream, but it is an 11-man roster. Yeah, I don't know.
They should do it. I'm just
saying.
If
you count viable players, so there's room.
Yikes! Hey, they should do it. Okay. Now, I hope everyone had some fun with that, because I know we certainly did. Now we're going to actually get in and talk about a little bit of actual Overwatch League. Oh, let's break it. So, of course, we had the Melee tournaments for both the Asia region and the North America region. Spoilers to anyone who didn't watch it. If you're for some reason haven't
we gave you a whole week to catch up.
We gave you a whole week and a very long conversation about Sideshow's contract.
What contract, Blevins? I'm still bitter. Don't bring it up.
Okay. I was gonna say, well, he actually won oh, I see what you did. We just go and do it for another 20 minutes. Shanghai Dragons end up winning 4-3 over the Seoul Dynasty in the finals of the Asia bracket, and the San Francisco Shock win 4-2 over the now cursed Florida Mayhem.
They're so lucky they did this after that.
I know. They wouldn't have even made it. So, we wanted to go over at least some highlights of some of the matches, and really maybe deep dive on a few, and just talk over some of these matches for these events, because
This whole episode is just recap, essentially, and we'll preview whatever we have coming up for next week. We don't even know what those matches will be, and apparently one tournament means we all need to take 3 weeks off. Preempting another conversation I'll be starting in a minute, but so we're just going to basically be going through the brackets, talking about some surprises. It's going to be very free-flowing and just fun and goofy, so we hope you guys are along for the ride.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so we'll start with the Asia tournament. Of course, Guangzhou started off with a bye, like we talked about, and then Seoul first match. Seoul wins 3-0 versus Hangzhou Spark. Not really too much of a surprise. Not really too much to go into there. The second match, however, I think is the start of perhaps the downfall of me. But the NYXL win 3-2 over the Chengdu Hunters. And I'll talk about this more in depth in the Shanghai versus NY match. But NYXL they're not I haven't quite gotten a beat on if NYXL has just not leveled up where other teams have, or if they're struggling or what. But NYXL is not at the same level of dominance, or even, I wouldn't say competency, but it's just not the same team, even though it literally is. It does not feel like the same team right now. And I mean, you look at this last year, NYXL wins 3-2 over Chengdu Hunter. You'd never think that, right? Like it's just absurd almost to think that NY would even have close matches against these teams, and now we're losing.
I mean, they did have close matches before. I think that gets a little bit lost in what NYXL was in season 1. They weren't 4-0ing everybody. They had a very, very positive overall map rec. I mean, that's what comes from almost never losing.
Right.
And they certainly did put a lot of teams away. But they were just so rock steady, consistent, and unflappable that when they got behind, they were able to come back better than most people. And they had plenty of 3-2s. They had plenty of 3-1s. That was all there. And so I don't want to overly hype this up. And another big thing, kind of overall notes from the tournament, and maybe we should have started there, but this was a lot of people I'm going to say it very wrongly and very just incorrectly say, oh, I love this tournament because it didn't have hero pools. It did have a hero pool.
Yeah.
Its hero pool was that nothing was banned.
Right.
Okay. The defining thing about hero pools is that for 1 week, you get this set of circumstances to play with. And sometimes it's no this hero, and sometimes it's no this hero. And this time it was just that there was no ban, so everything was on the table.
Right.
And that in and of itself is exactly the same thing as a hero pool. There's just not single compositions that are like ruled out because of, we're missing that tank that we need for that one. It's its own form of hero pool. And I think hero pool's got a bad rap out of this tournament, when realistically they buoyed it and made it as entertaining and as fun.
Way better.
Oh, infinitely better. There was a lot going for this tournament. No hero pools meant that everybody had the chance to play what they played best. Okay. And that's what I think the key difference is, right? It's a hero pool that's in a good spot for a tournament like this, or the playoffs, which was always the plan to not have them there. The hero pools also force teams to figure out what they're best at and what they're comfortable with by forcing them into trying the different comps, the different styles throughout the last 2 months, or however long we've had hero pools for now. It's been a considerable amount of time. That inspired the teams to be creative. That limited their playtime, so they didn't have, at going into the tournament, 2 months of scrims on the same 6 or 7 heroes, so that switching off of it in the middle of a match to try to counter something wasn't unthinkable, because you were throwing away how much practice time that you spent, how much coach 'em up time that you spent just for in the moment, So I think the hero pool system absolutely was a huge boon to this event. And anybody that says otherwise, I think is very confused about what actually happened this weekend. The other thing going for it was that drops were back, which is great. And helped quite a bit, and I think may have been the single biggest factor in the viewership spike that we saw, not the format change, not anything else. I think we'll see that carry through in the regular season because people love drops, people love free stuff. So great to have that back. Props to the Overwatch League for figuring out any way to incorporate that and tie that in and bring that back. So I'm sorry, what was the original question? New York.
New York, they're just not, regardless of whether this is maybe the rest of the league catching up to them, or maybe like at points last year where maybe they would have, I mean, historically they did come back from these deficits or rally back. They're just not doing that now. I mean, obviously they did versus Chengdu, but
so I mean, looking at the roster they rolled out, especially against Chengdu, I don't know if they had any substitutions. It was SBB and Libero with Mono and Hatba, and then Jonak and Animo.
So they ran in against Shanghai as well.
That's their roster from the last 2 years with Hatba instead of Meko. And I don't think there's anybody around that's still going to really try to convince anybody anymore that Hatba is better than Meko is. No. So you're strictly worse than you were in the past, and you're getting a worse performance. And it's a very important position in the game. Anything on your tank line, I think is a massive importance. I think main tank is a little bit more, but you need that off tank to really support and play with. And listen, Hatpa's going to improve with this team over time. He's more than good enough for them to be good. But this doesn't have to be more than maybe a slightly incorrect read on the meta, just getting it a little bit wrong and not having the best team synergy in the world. Now, winning in 5 against a team like Chengdu isn't a problem. It's more the second match to me that's an issue for them. The fact that they just dropped 3-0 to Shanghai is a problem, because this is a team that should at least be able to give anybody in this region fits and problems and some difficulty throughout the way. So that's what you really want to see from New York. But when you look at like what's wrong with them, listen, there's a new coach there that's got to get things figured out. There's plenty of time for New York, I guess, is really what I'm getting at. But as a fan, as you can tell from Blevins' reaction of the weekend, not what he wanted wanted to see from his team.
No, it's I think, it's definitely something to keep an eye on, obviously, because I think it just with Shanghai again, like it didn't seem like Shanghai obviously performed very well and they've been very good, and obviously they won the region, so arguably best team in the region, at least there's a pretty big argument in that trophy that they have. And so it, maybe it's not the biggest thing in the world, but it's still like it's New York. It's nothing has changed. Like you said, it's the same roster minus Meko. Nothing has changed in the roster, and as much as it pains me to say, maybe that's a problem. I think there's been some strides, and I don't necessarily in the short term disagree with, like, okay, it's SBB Libero, great, run it, let's perfect that. But as we've seen in previous weeks, and at least a little bit this week, like NY is running, they're not adapting to the meta. Maybe they had a wrong call, but they're not able to adapt. It's like, well, if Libero on Echo isn't working, like, you got to change it, right? You got to do something to change it up, and it's just like they're not able to do that. And I think there's enough tape on them now where a team, if you have the skill, like NYXL can't be stubborn anymore. They can't do we're NYXL and we can just flex on you, even if we're playing off meta. Even we can just play dive into everything. That's a season one thing that it like carried over probably too long into season 2. It probably would have been better for NYXL if they got punished more in season 2 and were a mid-table team in season 2, because it would have woken them up. Hopefully, I would hope. You get battered around a little bit in season 2 and you're a mid-table team and no one's talking about you anymore. Or they're talking about how the fall from grace. If that happened in season 2, we might.
Here's
not
a
be
tweet from from Krusty about 2 weeks ago. It was a twit longer, so that's why it's going to be a little bit. But the champion teams can't stay the same. At first, I didn't agree, but as time went by, I gradually understood. And by that time, so much had already changed. How should I face this? I had to change the players for many reasons, but I never want to let go of players I've been with. When I think about the time we spent together, blah, 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 blah. So I'm not going into the sappy stuff on San Francisco. Now, maybe in my original thought reading this is, I mean, that's a convenient thing to say for a guy whose MVP just retired, and then they traded away Architect, who was a star for them in the past. But he didn't use Architect last year, and to be honest, I've said it before, and it might not be the most popular opinion from everybody, but there's something to this, right? Like Sinatraa was an off tank for you at the best of times,
right?
In the GOATS meta, right, when he kind of did all of his work. So to me, their roster really hasn't changed that much overall. It no more than everybody's has been forced to, with 3-3 being gone and forcing 2-2 again. So it's a little bit lost on me that this kind of point, and I'm not sure I agree with it, but New York is a great example of it, and is something that does kind of point to that, where they've never been as good as they were straight out of the gate.
Right.
That you might need something to kind of shake things up. And I don't know that it's apathy from New York necessarily, but at times it feels that way, right? Like when we're talking about what they're doing going into the playoffs, and they got a bunch of Minecraft streams up, and they're just not I don't know. It's not that it's a problem. There's Overwatch League players out there right now. Some of them on Houston, Linkser was streaming a lot of Valorant and stuff like that. It's not that these guys have to. It's not that these guys have to devote all their gaming time to Overwatch, but it's just that it creates kind of a bad look when it doesn't go your way and your fans are following them and they're like, well, when the first year all they played was that on stream. It seemed like they were more committed, and it's hard to keep those thoughts out when you're watching it and when you're seeing it. And it's a little ridiculous. I think it's very healthy for the players to do other things, but it can be a symptom, right? We don't know what their practice schedule is, and we'll never get to see that. But it very well could be that they've got one less scrim per week or something now than in the past, or we don't know. But it's at least the thought of somebody that me and you personally hold up to be the best coach in the league. There's a couple others that are making a run for it, but for now, Krusty's never been the head coach of a disappointing team, or a team that's not exceeded our expectations going into the year. This is the only year that'll probably happen, because we hold the team at number one.
You can't exceed number one.
Right, you reached the top, so you can only go down now. But if he's the best around, and these are the thoughts that he's putting out there, I almost wish he'd said it at a time when Sinatraa hadn't just retired and they hadn't just traded somebody, because I think it would have carried a little more weight. But it fits the bill here. So I guess, are you calling for New York to make a roster move and a shakeup midseason?
I think it would be helpful for the long-term success of the team. I think.
What position would you make an addition at?
I mean, the obvious one seems like it would be off tank, right? Because Hapa is just. I mean, he is a change, but even Mono was just not in at least in these matches, has not looked the same without Meko. It's Mono Meko, and I think their combined forces were greater than the sum of the parts. I think that rings true with them. I don't think it. I mean, there already is additions and subs and a new regime on the DPS core. They can play Who Are You or Nene. You don't need more different DPS players. So, and I mean, is it ever Jonak? I mean, that seems like an absurd thing to say, but Jonak. I mean, Jonak is always going to.
Jonak's not been Jonak.
No, he's not. He's not a dominant force on Moira. It's hard to be the same force that he's never going to be what he was in season 1. Because
that'll always be true, because he changed the way the position is played, the way the hero was played. Jonak syndrome was a very real thing. He changed everybody that plays that position
Right.
When he came into the league and did that. So you're right that he can't do that. But I mean, I think his Zen and his Anna are still top 5 for sure. It's been so long since we've really seen his Zen. I would need to sit down and watch their stuff from this past weekend when Zen was a little more popular. I don't know how much they really utilized it, but yeah, it's definitely a really interesting conversation with New York, especially a team like that is really solid talent-wise across the board. So what do you shake up? And I think you might have a point in that, like, okay, so you do have Hotba in there. He's a shakeup. I know Who Are You looked really bad on the May. And I know we saw a decent amount of May this weekend, but I don't think May was mandatory this weekend by any stretch from what I saw. So why weren't you playing him? If you thought he was I don't know, it's like, is he not your Echo player? Because if he's your Echo player, he should have been there. And to me, Libero represents a very good baseline ability to come in and maybe pick up a new hero. But I almost want to see Libero become New York's oh my goodness, Rascal, in the sense that, like, we're changing things, that we're doing something different, so Libero's going to come in to help us execute that. A new hero comes out, he's our jack of all trades, pick it up right away, we're going to slide you in, and then maybe it becomes somebody else's job after a little while. I mean, we've seen that with Rascal. He's yet to leave the stage. We'll see if somebody else, if Stryker or somebody ends up picking up the mantle of that particular hero or something down the line. I kind of question that at this point, given the way the roster looks with the moves they've made. But I don't know. It's all very hard to pin down for New York, what the actual answer is, because there's still so much talent there, and they're also in a position where you don't need to panic.
But that's
spot in the standings is okay here, right?
Yeah,
they're 10-3, Blevins.
You're not wrong, and I think you could say the same thing every single year, and it really depends on what their goals are. Their goals as an organization are to have a really good regular season record, then they have succeeded in that every year so far. For the first and second years, they have done that. Third year, it's looking good. But if your goal is to win a championship, I don't know. It's tough because you're 100% right. The talent is there. It's hard to argue it when you look at it like position by position. Yeah, maybe you can change out Hotba. Maybe you can like actually solidify or start investing into Who Are You or Nene or whatever for on the DPS line. But when you look at it individually, it's tough to make that change, right? Like, why would it's like even Hotba? It's like, okay, that is a change already. And are you going to get someone better than Hotba? I don't know. Maybe not. Are you going to get someone?
Maybe they've got it. Isn't Bianca on this team?
Yes, they are. But the point I'm making is like nothing jumps out as like a glaring problem, and like you said, their record doesn't put any sort of heat on them, and their season 2 performance doesn't put any heat on them, and their season 1 performance doesn't put any heat on them. They're at perfectly lukewarm all the time. They're never like super bad, but they're not winning championships. They're not winning playoffs. They're not winning anything. Maybe I'm just overreacting because I'm a fan and I want to see a championship. Maybe I just need to give him more time. But like,
it's that they let you taste you. Like, honestly, New York fans believed it was theirs in season 1.
It was theirs to take, and it was theirs to throw as well.
When I suggested it was possible that they might not win it, I remember we got hate for it. And we had people come back when they lost and be like, hey, I just wanted to point out, I commented about how what Deathblow said was like the dumbest thing I've ever heard at the time.
Yeah.
And here we are, and he was right. But I think that's a little bit part of it for the fan base for sure, is just that they really got their hopes up to think that that's what they could expect, that they could be there. And it's a little bit hard to see that as possible when they're coming in fourth place in a field of 7 teams. It's just, it's a kind of a bitter pill to swallow when you have such high expectations, and when they do perform, generally speaking, so solid throughout the year. 10-3 as a Houston fan, love that record.
Oh yeah.
But it's New York, it's not Houston, so it's a very different conversation.
Yeah, the point I'm making is it's not even really a point. It's just I guess it's just a thought. Is just like, you're not put under any pressure, so why would you change? Okay, I get that, but that's even a little bit scarier than me. It's like, hey, we're not doing bad. Why should we change? Don't fix it if it ain't broke. But it's like, maybe the expectations are set at the wrong spot. I don't know.
And the current economic climate, for what it is, even if it is difficult to make an acquisition or something like that, I think just the sheer fact that Bianca's on the bench, Hotba's one of the players that maybe could potentially be upgraded.
Yeah.
And you've got Who Are You there. I feel like outside of when it's been May time, I've wanted SBB Libero to be out there. But otherwise,
it's June now. Play.
Shut up.
And on that note,
but now it's not. So like, I've wanted SBB Who Are You to kind of be the DPS duo for this team, and it would be great to see it at least an extended period of time. Yeah, make that switch with Bianca. See if that gives you more than what you had before. My understanding is that Nene is still in North America with the medical problem. He was getting treatment here or something.
Okay.
They kept him here to deal with it. So that's not an option as far as I know. And that's completely acceptable. That's nothing to hold against the team. Personally, I think they look better with SBB anyways. But if it's in need of a shakeup, if it's, hey, give something else an extended try. I'm with you guys that the Who Are You experiment failed when it was May, but if that's gone, and if we're more into the Echo camp, then I think Who Are You might be the guy, and I would like to see him more.
But again, this goes back to my point of like, yeah, maybe you should try the Bianca experiment. I think perhaps that has a bigger upside in the long run. But you're at that weird middle ground, 10-3. It's like, you don't want to throw away losses, right? Like, you don't, like, if you're 3-10, yeah, throw whatever out there. You don't have anywhere to go but up, right? Try it out, learn something. It's not going to be at the cost of anything if you're already losing. But when you're winning, you don't want to shake things up, right?
Yeah, and maybe the form, and this can kind of be the end of the New York combo, because for a team that only played the 2 games, probably spending too much time on them.
Yeah,
but maybe the uncertainty of the season format at the moment could really play into that. Like, how are you going to qualify for the playoffs? How many teams are going?
Right.
How are you going to handle the 2 different brackets with the Asian and the NA regions at the moment? And how are they going to come together? So they're kind of like all these teams are trying to hit a moving target right now. We don't know what the playoffs are going to look like at this point. We have no idea. So that makes it very difficult, and it makes it harder to think of it. Because to me, you sell me 10-3, you don't want to throw games away. I'm like, well, doesn't that mean you got a couple games in your back pocket, right? You've got like an edge. You can afford to do that. It's not like you're throwing. I don't think they're going to suddenly start losing to Hangzhou and Chengdu and London and these teams that they've been beating up on to get to this 10-3 record. So I mean, plenty of them are from NA, I get that, but you get my point, right? I don't think it's that change is going to turn them from the mid tier of the Asia region to the bottom tier by any means. So see if it gives you some higher upside. Do you get some more spikes that maybe allow you to take down a team like Shanghai, something like that?
Yeah.
Well,
I agree.
Anything else from the Asia side bracket we should talk about? I think Seoul's surprise has got to be discussed.
Well, I think Seoul looked really good, and relatively consistently good, which is interesting. Not that they're good, but that they were consistent in any sort of capacity.
Yeah, 3-0 versus Hangzhou. Going into the weekend, I thought it was a little funny. Like, I was listening to Plat Chat, and they were talking about how big of an impact Architect is going to make on the Hangzhou Spark, and you're not wrong. But they were like putting them in the finals of the bracket because of it, and I'm like,
Yeah.
wait a minute. There's a 2-week mandatory quarantine period for a player going from North America to Korea.
Yeah.
He can't play, right? Like if Wolf and Achilleos can't cast,
Right.
because they went back and they're in a facility for 2 weeks, then how is this guy going to play? But it didn't work out that way. Seoul this weekend showed an ability to play the dive compositions really well, which is really what they struggled on. They've succeeded when they've been able to play double shield with their 2 main tank roster that they refuse to step down from and back away from, which is a little bit maddening, but thankfully I don't root for them, so it doesn't have to bother me too much. And they finally showed some ability to really perform outside of that base composition that they worked well in. So this is why at the end of the day, I've given them less beef than I would have if they've been hot swapping back and forth all the time like last year, because eventually it starts to come together, right? Like your main tank learns to play the diva a little bit and can now it works. And this is what we want maybe somebody like New York to do.
Right.
Make a switch, deal with the initial bumps, and then you get more of an upside for it in the long term. So hopefully for Seoul's fans' sake, that's what's happening here, and they're going to be able to level up and keep getting better. But right now, they're probably the number 2 team in the region in my mind. It's a little tough to just disqualify Guangzhou from that spot based off of the one result. But it's they just beat them head to head, so you almost have to give them the benefit of the doubt. It was 3-2, really close, what have you. But I mean, straight through into the finals, it was a rough loss for Seoul in the finals, and it could give them a bit of a kick in the teeth and drop them back down a bit. But personally, I don't think so. The base of this roster is very experienced, season 1 champs. They know what it takes. They've lost stage playoffs before, which these to me are the same thing as that. A tournament at the end that culminated, it just mattered more. There was stakes to it. So yeah, I don't think that's going to be a major issue for them, but man, what a finals it was. If you guys didn't get to see it, Seoul comes out to the blazing 3-0 start just to completely collapse. They blew a 28-3 lead at halftime versus the Shanghai Dragons. NFL fans might appreciate that one. But it was just a rough go, and a great job by Shanghai, who in that match swapped in Fearless into the main tank position. And I thought he was a huge difference maker for this team. We talk a lot about the importance of the main tank position, and we talk a lot about how bad some main tanks are on some bad teams. And I want to point out that Fearless looked about as bad as it gets at the main tank position, and I don't no longer think it was just his fault in season 1 anymore, right? Like, you may have just put the man on a sinking ship and it sank, and I don't know that it was his fault. But yeah, he came in, he was just a really solid player, outperformed stand 1 in the main tank position. It was there for all 4 of the map wins in that finals for Shanghai. So a huge win for him personally to really erase the stain of what was the 0-40 Shanghai Dream. He wasn't there at the beginning of the year, I don't think. I think he was a mid-season ad in season 1 for Shanghai. But just a great performance from both teams. Very fun to watch. I mean, those reverse sweeps, especially, we see them when we talk about them when it's 1st to 3 in the regular season matches and stuff. It's very different than the 4-3 win on a reverse sweep. It's only one more game. One more map is a lot, right? One more game is a whole lot more to pull off those reverse sweeps. And it takes a lot from Shanghai to keep it together, to make the switch of their roster in that situation and have it pay off. It's a very mentally taxing thing to turn the momentum like that. And also from the Seoul side, it's a heck of a collapse. It really is, mentality wise. In the middle of that game, you lose one match or one map, okay, 2 even fine. but then it's slipping and it's gone and you can't grasp it. And just adding the one extra win being needed, 3-2 is 5 games. This is 7. So you're only adding one more win needed, but there's 2 whole extra maps being played.
Yep.
It's a marathon, not a sprint, especially in this situation. So yeah, super, super entertaining. A great watch, and make sure you guys go back and check it out, and hopefully you can find a way to sync the audio, because it was really my only complaint about it, was that the caster audio was pretty massively desynced from the in-game action, and it was a little bit rough, but didn't really take away from it too much. It was still there. If you're a regular watcher of the game, you'll be able to fully understand what's going on, and Brennan Sideshow did a really good job considering the issues of the time delay. So.
Yeah, definitely a really good match. And we've all been there, right? Well, maybe not all of us, but I think a lot of us have been there where it's like you're in a situation like Soul was, you're up 3-0 or whatever, an equivalent would be. It's like, I just need one more. And you're up 3-0 in a finals. You're not, no matter how much mental strength you have or discipline that you have, there's no way that the thought of we got this, you're already pre-celebrating. As much as you are actively trying not to do that, you're doing it, right? There's no, you're up 3-0. They need to win 4 in a row. Are you kidding me? Has anyone ever even done that ever? No.
On player cams, they were all smoking victory cigars. I'm just kidding.
Oh, I was gonna say, I don't remember that. Really? That's crazy. You're thinking that even when you lose the first one, it's yeah, whatever. We'll just give up one, and then it's then the collapse happens, and it's rough, and all of a sudden, it's awful. I would be curious if there's if you're up 3-0, you probably have just a massively high chance of winning, right? 95+%, I would say, probably. I don't know. I'm making these numbers up. But I wonder if you're up 3-0 and then you go down 3-2, what are the chances that you win? It might be under 50. Who knows? How many times? It's something where once that tipping point happens, it's really hard to come back, because it's the opposite of that is happening. It's oh God, we're actually going to lose this. But definitely check it out. Really, really, crazy and fantastic Overwatch to have happened. But let's move on here, and we will go through some of these matches on the NA side. We started off with I would say a bittersweet win with Toronto.
It happened. I'm taking it.
Toronto got a win, got a W, 3-2 over the Vancouver Titans. A team only in the sense that they literally have enough players to fill the roster. But we got the 3-2 victory. I think I messaged you. I think I messaged you while that match is happening. And it was something to the effect of, "Is this really happening? What?"
Yeah, Vancouver got themselves a gamer, at bare minimum, is what I can say about that. I thought Shockwave looked really, really good in that match. And I know there's been some conversations about, can he maintain that and blah, 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 blah. I don't care. He gave him a spark. He was pulling stuff off nobody else on that team was able to do. He was looking good. He was making plays. He really gave them an opportunity to do something here. Toronto also opened a door open for them pretty massively by playing their new player, Zeke, who, let's just be honest, is a shadow of what Surefour would be if you just played him. Just put him in. Okay. Yeah. Anyways, we don't know what's going on there.
He's burnt out.
It's week whatever. You haven't played enough to be burnt out. You weren't even playing all 4 anyway. I don't even want to hear that crap. Not from this team and not from that player in this situation. You can't control your mental state like that and just be oh, it doesn't count or it doesn't matter. I get that. But at the end of the day, they signed you to be the poster boy of Canadian Overwatch,
right?
And to play for the Canadian team. Pretty sure you're still streaming. I know for a fact you were in a game on your ultimate, Tsumi, against my buddy Yankee not too long ago, because I got that screenshot. He was in there with Masa It was like 5 Overwatch League players in this game. So shout out to Yankee. Throw more so that you can play with me when I come back. But yeah, it's just it's a little crazy to look at this team and analyze this game in particular, because it was so random and weird to me that the new players were in, like, I mean, for Vancouver, okay, for Toronto it felt like throwing, and almost worked out that way. So, but thankfully they did steal that one.
Yeah, so we did technically get a victory there for Toronto, 3-2 over the Vancouver Titans. Paris Eternal wins 3-2 versus Boston. Anything to talk about there? I mean, Boston putting up 2 dubs.
I mean, Boston is showing some base level of competence here. I mean, they got us a win to make them not in that qualification match, in that 12-13, which in and of itself was a surprise, since before that they were so completely inept on in their matches that I've literally stopped discussing them, and maybe we will begin to take a look at them a little with any level of seriousness going forward. But yeah, a little bit about Paris Eternal just started to really drop off to me. Nico was playing pretty well, and maybe he's not doing that anymore, but brighter things are certainly ahead for Paris. More on this next week, but this is the last time you'll see them without Sparkle.
Okay, so after that match, we had Atlanta winning 3-0 versus Toronto, and Gladiators winning 3-0 versus Washington. Pretty straightforward stomps there.
Erster's still MIA, but otherwise, nothing to evaluate in those particular matches. Clear tier differences.
Yep. And then we have Dallas Fuel winning the battle for, or the what do they call it? It's not just the battle for Texas, is it? It's the
I don't know.
Home Star. Maybe there's no
the Lone Star Challenge or whatever was the individual one.
Okay.
I think they just call it the Battle for Texas on air and stuff. That was a specific event.
Yeah, Dallas versus Houston. Dallas wins 3-1. Any analysis there, Death?
Huge, massive, unbelievable pop-off performance from Decay there. Very pause-robably, to pull up to do an old callback there. Pause-robably the single best individual performance that Overwatch League has ever seen from Decay. So, I mean, just something to keep an eye out on Dallas going forward. And it really, the positive kind of stopped there for the week for Dallas. But they did look really, really good there. Their DPS is good enough to give them a fighting chance against anybody when they're playing well. They seem to be a little streaky. The support line seems to be a pretty big weakness, and the tank line is maybe holding their own more than excelling or popping off at any given point. But the DPS is absolutely capable of carrying and stealing a win. We've seen Doha do it. We've seen Decay do it now. Decay's done it on Tracer and Widowmaker now, which I think is notable, because we talked before, like, Tracer was banned. It really massively impacts, as a tiebreaker, if nothing else. Some Dallas predictions and things like that. But so him showing it on some other heroes is great for them. Solidly a mid-table team here from Dallas, but yeah, nothing too crazy in this one to analyze, other than if you like watching Widowmaker play and you like watching individual pop-off moments, Decay was chock full of them throughout that entire series. Very impressive to watch.
Okay, we then get to move on and see. I moved away there. Okay, yes, we then get to see Dallas get beat by San Francisco 3-1. Again, I think we're still talking about a tier difference here in teams.
Yeah, there was a couple mistakes there from San Francisco, but Dallas really unable to capitalize on them. That's, to me, there was a tier difference apparent there. The DPS kept Dallas alive. They won map 1 very decisively, and then just fell flat. I mean, like, they full held in the last map on Rialto, and then they got fuller held themselves. They just they were completely unable to capitalize on anything that went wrong, or anything they were able to do in the first half of the match or map. They just couldn't finish it up. They just couldn't finish against San Francisco, and I think that's something that happens when it's just a significant tier difference between the teams.
Yep. All right. We had a close one here. LA Valiant versus the Paris Eternal. LA pulling it out 3-2. What did you think about this one, Death?
I think that neither of these teams are great at the moment in their current state as they were playing here. Um, Paris, I expected more from in this event in general, but honestly, probably not more than just like flip the result here and then everything would have been normal.
Mm-hmm.
Soon and Nico's not gonna take you where you want to go.
Yep.
They're getting Sparkle. They need to get Eggsy back. If they get both of them, I'm terrified for anybody and everybody they play against.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows? We'll have to wait and see. It just might not be meant to be this
Yep.
year. We'll have to see when we get Eggsy back.
Yep. All right.
Yeah, it was to me more of a failing of the Paris Eternal than a huge success by the Valiant here.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Makes sense. Philly Fusion winning 3-1 over Gladiators. Again, kind of seems like a bit of a tier jump there. And then Florida Mayhem maybe living up to their high seeding in this event, winning 3-1 versus the Atlanta Reign.
Yeah, I mean, they showed they can hang at a bare minimum.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll be talking more and more about Florida as we go through the bracket. As we already mentioned, they were in the finals. So great showing here from Florida. They seem to have a bit of a different take on this meta this weekend than everybody else did, and I think they were the ones that got it right. And that was Brig Tracer, Armor Pack Yaki, and set him loose. And the Atlanta Reign could not really compete with that. He was all over the place all weekend against everybody. And really, it started here against Atlanta, who they had the chance to pick them early. They were the second pick, and so they shotted Atlanta. The Gladiators were the correct choice, quote unquote, based off seeding.
Yeah.
And then Paris was the other possible choice. Notable, Florida before this match, I don't think had won a map against the Atlanta Reign. I believe I heard that either on the broadcast somewhere or maybe it was on Plat Chat or something. I don't know.
That checks out.
Yeah, definitely not a match. I'm pretty sure they hadn't even won a map against them though. Don't quote me on the map thing, but either way, it was a defining moment, I think, for the franchise to call shot an opponent that you have been dominated historically by, and to get the win. Atlanta, did you know your best player is still on your bench? That's it. That's all I got.
But he's experiencing burnout.
I don't
actually
he hasn't
know if
played
that's
yet this year,
Yeah.
so I don't know how he could possibly be burned out.
Yeah.
Erster has to start playing for Baby Bay. If you're not going to take yourself seriously, Atlanta, your opponents won't, and the Florida Mayhem will pick you and beat you again later on in the year. You can't just throw out your B team all the time.
Right.
Doesn't make any sense. Knock it off. Put the man that was your MVP last year, the reason you were as good as you were. Baby Bay came in and solidified you and made you okay when DeFran left.
Right.
He gave you baseline competent play. Okay. He did that standing alongside your MVP, and now your MVP is gone. That's absurd. I can't support that decision-making process even a little bit. I can't even remotely make sense of it. Where did Erster go? At least pull up Florida and tell us that he's having, medical problems and needs to go back to whatever with Saya player, like there's teams giving us some idea of what's going on. They're not Surefour and Erstering us. We're hearing a little bit about burnout from Surefour, but it's not come officially from the team to my knowledge, or I don't know. It's just very frustrating. And in Atlanta's case, I think it's like one of the best DPS players in the league, and we're just not getting him, and it doesn't make sense, and the team is massively suffering for it.
Yep. Seems like an active throw. Speaking of active throws, San Francisco Shock beats LA Valiant 3-0. I don't know that there's much to talk about. Again, tier differences, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
On the other side of the bracket, the aforementioned Philadelphia Fusion lose to the Florida Mayhem 3-1. Now, Death. Atlanta wasn't playing Erster. They've maybe been looking they've been looking very inconsistent as of late. They did have a literally undefeated record versus Florida up until this point, but the Florida Mayhem win over Atlanta Reign isn't the most, surprising thing necessarily. This win, however, I think was a little caught more people off guard. What did you think about this match, Death?
I mean, I thought the Philadelphia Fusion came out and played the general consensus, quote unquote, meta comps. And I thought that the Florida Mayhem came in with their plan and their strategy, and it was better.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that Philly was able to figure it out and counter it in time. I think Philly might be really clinging or trying to cling to the old style a little bit more, and maybe Florida's not doing that. And it doesn't mean that this isn't going to be a massive Philadelphia victory the next time these two teams meet. But what this does mean is that this was an absolute announcement. This was a statement from the Florida Mayhem, that I know our qualifier opponents had a combined 2 wins on the entire course of the season, and I know that we only beat Atlanta with their best player on their bench so far in this event, but we're here and we're real. And listen, this is when I started to really buy in. I mean, you were like there ready, wanting to buy in after they beat Atlanta, because even with Erster on the bench, Atlanta's not a bad Overwatch team. But there was nothing baked into this Philly Fusion. There's no asterisks. There's no anything. That was the best Philly had to offer. What they prepared and came to for this tournament was not good enough to beat the Florida Mayhem and what they prepared and what they brought into this tournament. And so all bets are off with this result. That it clearly says it. And everybody, I love it if for no other reason than everybody going into the event wanted to see Philly versus the Shock. Right. That's what we all wanted. We want, because they're the best 2 teams. Let's see what they got. No, you don't get that. And Florida just stole it from us, like they stole Sideshow from us on their roster.
Although technically, based on seeding, we did see the 2 best teams play against each other in the finals.
Well, we did, but not the power rankings, best 2 or whatever. You know, final standings, top 2 teams in the region. So. Which is great, because we're still going to get to see that matchup in the future, right? It's not like they're not going to play against each other, but it prolongs it, right? It still asks the question, and it throws a 3rd team into the mix for who the best 2 teams are as well. You know, now that's maybe a 4-team race or something like that. But all things considered, I mean, with Florida, I know, guys, a lot of you are going to hate because you've bought in. I'm still not fully there, right? Like Florida's shown that in this hero pool they were able to excel, and that's great. They showed us that in stage 4, and then they came out this year and looked really bad with a lot of the same pieces. I think they're playing Fate now. I've been screaming about that all year. He's like, you know, an MVP caliber main tank player. I've thought that the whole time, that he was their best bet. I love seeing them do that. I think it's been a big boost to them, getting him going and getting him playing and comfortable. And but yeah, listen, there's going to come a meta when Chris is going to have to play Lucio again. I'm not sold. I've never seen the man play an adequate Lucio. As long as they can play this Brig Tracer stuff, they're going to be a force, and they're going to be tough to beat. But there's still a lot to learn here, right? It was a tournament, it was extended, but it was only 3 games. 3 games against very good opponents. 2 wins in those 3 games is great. That's what you want to see. But at the end of the day, it's still a small sample size against super relevant, super high tier opponents.
It's a start, though.
They're showing almost everything they possibly can to convince us. But I feel to be a responsible analyst, you still need to hold it at arm's length and look at it and go, awesome job this weekend. I want to see you in the next weekend. So I'm raised. I'm there. I'm not discounting them because of cake opponents anymore. But to be leveled up and in that top tier team with your San Franciscos and your Phillies, you have to do it as long as they did before I put them there. It's the same treatment I gave all the other teams. Florida's going to get it too. Great. You're in the upper middle now. Keep going, because you're showing more than enough to keep tier jumping. But you've got to maintain and maybe sign an adequate Lucio player, because you're not going to be able to dodge it forever.
And then, of course, the final, San Francisco wins 4-2 versus Florida, but we've kind of, you know, indirectly talked about that match with Florida's performance. And I mean, hey, getting 2 wins against San Francisco in the finals, that's
really good job.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, even though San Francisco won, talk of the tournament. Certainly going to be Florida Mayhem. I was looking through this bracket, Death, and something interesting happened. It's ironically interesting. I believe in every single match, the higher seeded team won. Every single one. Toronto was 12, beats 13.
Obligated to fact check you. Yeah,
I'm looking right now. 5 beats 11, 8 beats 12, 7 beats 13, 8 beats 9, 1 beats 8.
Rigged.
4 beats 5, 3 beats 7, rigged. 2 beats 8, 1 beats 4, 2 beats 3, and then 1 beats 2. Literally, if you just pick the high seed
won in every single matchup. The finals ended with the first seed against the second seed, and the first seed won.
Yeah,
very clearly rigged.
Yeah. It's funny because that's, I mean, I don't know if it's statistically, that's probably not technically the correct term, but like, this is what the projected outcome would be, right? And this is what happened. But how often does that ever happen?
Rarely. And I almost want to see how it would have broken up had you done it by final standings. Right. Like overall league standings on the regular season going into it. Sure. I wonder how much that would have changed. At bare minimum, Florida Philly would have changed.
Oh, yeah.
Florida would have been the low seed against Atlanta as well. So really outside of Florida, I wonder how much it would have changed. Probably not dramatically.
I don't know where Vancouver is on the season record because they probably had a little bit of padding at the top. I don't think they're 13.
When did they play?
A good point. Wait, did they? I don't know.
The old roster had like 2 matches. Like
you're right.
God, nothing.
I've lost all concept of time. I don't remember what has.
Well, and Vancouver's such an outlier in this whole ordeal too.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, it's definitely very interesting. Good on you spotting that.
I feel like that rarely happens just in general in tournaments, even though it technically is what is projected. But so Death.
Maybe I don't know. It's clear we're getting this again, right? I think we're getting another tournament for.
I thought I heard something about a June melee. I don't know if it was official, but
please name it something better than that.
June Jamboree. You heard it here first.
It's already better than melee was. But yeah, listen, I'm very curious to see because it's funny. We like make fun of the seeding process because of Florida getting all those easy matches, but then they literally backed it up. I mean,
they lived up to it there. Exactly.
Yeah. And it's fun, we talked too about like get right weeks. Like this is a good get right week for this team, and maybe it was more when they were all playing 2 weeks at a 2 matches at a time and stuff in season 1. But maybe that's just what Florida needed. Maybe they just needed to take a couple of weeks in their schedule to just get their confidence up and get things going. Let Kooky really work with them in a positive way, and just great. Yeah, I don't know. Did you see Kookie's remarks about it at all after the event? He talked about how it was like the perfect finish for them, right? Because it shows that they're right there on the doorstep of where they want this team to be, but they still have room to grow and still room to improve. And I've just been really impressed with the job Kookie's been doing and the outlook and the way
good outlook.
He's talked really, really the absolute correct sports competitive person way to look at this finish, to recognize the growth, the positivity, the good that's come out of it for you, and to also recognize that there's more work to do, that there's you're not where you want to be. This isn't the goal. This is just a good stop along the way. So that, if almost more than the actual result itself from Florida, like has me feeling like they might actually be a good team. And if you'll remember, it was 3 weeks ago, I was like mad. I was so mad at both Florida and Washington because I really thought one of them would like gel with the pieces they got and the moves they made and actually tear up and show that they had it in them to be good. And it just, none of them were doing it, and I was so mad. So I'm really, really, really hoping Florida can restore my faith in the Overwatch esports scene and give me that.
I gotta say, Death, unfortunately, they're now forever cursed because they cut Sideshow, so that's out. That's out of the question.
Anytime Florida loses, please, everybody, the curse of Sideshow.
Yeah, curse of Sideshow.
Absolutely, the Sideshow curse needs to be a thing.
Yep.
Do not let them get away with just cutting that man after literally 5 minutes on the roster.
Yeah.
I don't even think, to me, they didn't live up to it. Did
No.
you send him a contract to e-sign?
Yeah.
Did he get an actual paycheck from you?
Yeah,
Because
even if it would be funny if it was
bet.
for 1 cent, because that works for me. If
League
there's
minimum.
if there is
League minimum, 50 grand, prorated to 2 weeks. I don't know what it is.
Well, it'd be like that'd be like $2,000, right? Because there's 52, there's roughly 50 weeks in a year, right?
I don't know, but the only way it's even remotely okay if that wasn't extended and this happened, and this would need, I would need this verified by both Sideshow, by 3 different people. The Florida Mayhem would need to say it.
Yep.
Sideshow would need to say it.
Yep.
And I need to hear it from the commissioner's mouth that it is a conflict of interest and a violation for a caster to play for one of the teams. And so he would have needed to resign as a caster in order to do. That's the only way, because that's not okay. I'm not trying to lose Sideshow here. You know what I mean? I'm trying to.
I'm not sure that it is a conflict of interest, though. Where in the rule book does it say it, Death?
I don't think it is.
Where does it say it?
Couldn't you give him a leave of absence for 2 weeks? Take him off the books?
Yeah, I want them to say that just so that we can refute that.
But that might create its own visa complications and things like so. It's possible that that's why.
Maybe.
But I need to hear it, and I need to hear it from more than just a bad tweet from an owner of a team that is now cursed by the Sideshow curse.
Yep.
I can't, like, I don't know. Bad taste in my mouth, Florida.
And just
all
so
the
people...
good I just said about you, it's you're gonna set your own ship on fire if you don't actually sign him for 2 weeks and put him in for a match. I'm telling you, one map. I don't care. You're clearly gonna lose the map. We all know it. It's fine. Maybe not against Boston or Vancouver, but put him in one map.
Yeah.
And you're just set. You're set. You're the kings of the whole month. Like what wouldn't be about you, right? You would absolutely dominate the Chipsa move, right? The hype of the PR move of signing him there in Philly. This would trump that. You'd completely steal Philly's thunder. You'd use them just as much and faster, right? Like everything would be about you. You'd have this big surprise finish. I mean, you would be on the kings of the Overwatch world right now without actually winning the tournament, by the way. And you just passed.
You blew it!
You blew it!
But, okay. Overall, Death, 30-second or a couple sentences on the tournament. What did you think? Overall impressions? Did your mind change about it? After seeing what happened and how it went down. What are your thoughts on it?
My thoughts are that it was great. It just shouldn't have awarded wins. That's still just really poor form for a sports league to be assigning wins for this. I think the fans and the teams got more than excited enough for them when they were stage playoffs that I want the state. I was glad to see them go. But if people they didn't hurt me, they weren't they were just almost a small annoyance that I had to cover them was my extent of my negativity towards the stage playoffs. I had fun watching them at times. Bring those back. Those don't cost you anything. This tournament, as fun as it was and as much as people enjoyed it, had a cost associated with it. And that is competitive integrity is the wrong word. Everybody had a chance.
Yeah.
Kind of. Maybe Vancouver doesn't feel that way, but they had a chance to at least play in.
Yeah.
They weren't going to win no matter what they did, so I guess it doesn't really matter. I don't know. It leaves a bad taste in the mouth of people that like the league format and want it, and I think you can very effectively do it. I mean, with how pumped people got for the stage playoffs, I just don't see why that was needed.
Yeah.
I don't see what it added to things. You could have done the same thing without the wins. The fan base wouldn't have been any different about it. I just might have spent 5 minutes talking about it on a show. Who cares, right? It didn't bother the stage playoffs before. And the other cost here is that it makes the playoffs less exciting. If you thought the tournament format was really fun and exciting, that's why we do it for the playoffs. That's why it's what decides the championship. And when you do one every single month of the season, it's going to make it feel less special when we get there. My crux of why I didn't like this idea and why I didn't want to do these, it hasn't changed. I'm able to put that aside when it's on and watch it and enjoy it. But too much Overwatch in the weekend to watch. There's still matches I haven't seen, and it's been 2 weeks since it's happened. I watched 2 of them today, as a matter of fact, right? Like, I'm still catching up. So yeah, I don't know. My thoughts haven't changed. But I thought the quality of games was really good. I thought people seemed to like it, and I think there has to be a way to meet in the middle. And just that might very well be stage playoffs. Do we need to have, because when you do it and it's not for something, you can just not invite the Toronto Defiant and the Florida and the Vancouver Titans, and you can have the same exact tournament with less weirdness at the beginning and all that.
Yeah.
Like, you can just shorten things, that you can make it snappier. You can have the same fun. Picking opponents is great. It's fun, even if some of the players don't have the most bubbly personalities, and it doesn't matter. It's some personality behind the team, and it adds so much. So a lot to like. I think there's better ways to do it, is I guess my big thing. And I think it's devolution from the stage playoff system. I'm still at that point, but we'll get more of them, and maybe over time they can change me more.
To shortly, summarize my thoughts as well. I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I think there's something, I can't quite pinpoint it, just felt a little bit off. Maybe it's the wins. Maybe it's it might possibly be the fact that we kind of had this thrust upon us just because, was
it the 85 C9s that happened throughout the 2 brackets?
Maybe it might be that too. But something felt a little bit off, but also I think there was a lot of excitement around the event. I think that the teams embraced it. The league did. I think the fans really liked it, and so definitely something positive came out of it, and that's good. So I'll leave it at that. But Death, we talked about this episode at the beginning, possibly being super short, and this is probably the longest one we've had this season.
Oh, I said laid back. I didn't say short. Okay. There's a lot of matches to talk about, but just very relaxed, whatever.
That is true. Do we have anything else that we want to cover before we get going here?
No, that's it for me, man.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. As always, we really do appreciate you guys spending a little time with us, hopefully getting your mind off of some of the stuff that's going on in the world. But, again, special thanks to Bungee Bamboo, our executive producer level patron, as well as all of the other Patreon supporters. You can head over to patreon.com/highnoonpodcast to support the show. And if you don't want to support us financially, that's not a problem at all. But the best way to support us to join the community is to go over to discord.me/highnoonpodcast. Still a great place to be. A lot of our regulars are there as well, and always talking about Overwatch League, and what is going on in the community. So make sure that you're there. But, guys, that's going to be it for today's episode. Thank you, everyone, again, for watching and listening. For Deathblow, I'm the Bevins, and remember, it's high noon.
Got his boots and he put on his hat. He threw the coin away that same day. It's in his past and he's not looking back. He says, finding mine now, God's my way. He's not good, but he sure ain't bad. He'll make amends for the sins that he has. He says, I'll change the world one bullet at a time, till I find mine.
The curse of Sideshow will live on forever.